They call it the last wild river of Asia. No dams, no concrete, no chains, but that freedom may not last much longer. The Salween River begins in the cold silence of the Tibetan Plateau, then thunders southward through the snow-worn gorges of Yunnan, slipping between jagged peaks that haven't bowed to man. It roars across the Myanmar border, past the forgotten villages of the Karen and the Shan, until it pours into the Andaman Sea, untamed, unowned, and unbroken. But for 15 kilometers, it defies what so many rivers in Asia have become. Machines for electricity, pipelines for commerce, dams have conquered the Mekong, choked the Yangtze, rewritten the Ganges, but the Salween still speaks with the voice of the wild. And yet, that voice is now being drowned by whispers of profit. Unlike its siblings, the Salween has remained untouched by large-scale dams. No reservoir has silenced its rapids. No corporation has yet chained its flow. That makes it rare. In fact, it's the longest free-flowing river in Southeast Asia. A staggering fact when you realize how few rivers in the region are left uncut, uninterrupted. Its wildness is not just ecological, it is spiritual. For the indigenous peoples living along its banks, the river is sacred. It is not a resource, it is an ancestor. The Karen call it Thanolwin, the Chinese call it Nujiang and the Angry River. But to them, it's life, identity, a thread in their stories. The Salween carves through some of the most biologically rich and topographically dramatic landscapes on Earth. In northern Myanmar, it snakes past jungles so dense, light barely touches the ground. It shelters clouded leopards, sun bears, gibbons, and hundreds of bird species that exist nowhere else. And then there's the Three Parallel Rivers region in Yunnan, a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Here, the Salween runs in near parallel with the Mekong and the Yangtze, three mighty rivers slicing through deep gorges side by side. It's a place of ecological magic and geological violence. Earthquakes, landslides, flash floods. Nature here still has the final word. But for how long? I remember standing above one of these gorges, watching the river vanish behind a bend of rock and mist. There were no fences, no warning signs, only the sound of water that had never been told to stop. And something about that felt holy. The Salween's untouched state is under siege. Over the past 2 decades, plans have emerged for more than a dozen megadams across China and Myanmar. Some are already under construction. Others are shelved, but not dead. And every few years, they come back, packaged as development, progress, prosperity. The Hatji Dam, for example, is one of the most controversial. Proposed deep in Myanmar's conflict zones, it would flood ancestral lands, displace indigenous communities, and fragment critical fish migration routes. And let's not forget, Myanmar is no stranger to turmoil. With political instability, military control, and foreign investment overlapping, the Salween is at risk of becoming collateral damage in a game it never asked to play. And these dams don't just alter water, they alter everything. Soil chemistry, rainfall patterns, food security. They do not arrive alone. They bring roads, power lines, machines. They bring outsiders who don't speak the language of the river. To dam the Salween is not just to destroy nature, it is to erase identity. I once visited a small Karen village near the river's bend in northern Thailand. They spoke of the Salween as a living spirit. Children were told not to shout too loud near the water because the river could remember disrespect. Elders made offerings at sunrise, not out of superstition, but reverence. In that quiet morning, with mist rolling across the banks, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. A stillness that doesn't come from silence, but from belonging, from knowing that not everything must be controlled. Some things are sacred precisely because we let them be free. One man told me, "We don't own the river. We care for it, because when we're gone, our children will still need to drink." But the Salween is also a river of pain. Its banks have witnessed decades of civil war. Myanmar's longest-running conflicts, ethnic armies, government forces, villages caught in the crossfire, mines buried beneath river trails. This conflict is one reason the Salween remained untouched for so long, because it was simply too dangerous to build on. Ironically, the violence protected the river, but now peace talks have opened the door to something more insidious: development deals. As the bullets quiet, the bulldozers arrive, and the river stands at a crossroads. One NGO worker told me they waited for the smoke to clear so they could pour concrete into silence. If the Salween is dammed, we don't just lose biodiversity, we lose one of the last examples of how rivers once behaved. Seasonal, unpredictable. We lose knowledge. Scientists still study the Salween to understand what natural sediment flow looks like, how fish spawn without barriers, how floodplains regenerate. Destroying it would be like burning a library and forgetting we ever knew how to read rivers. And we lose stories, because rivers are not just water, they're memory. The Salween has carried the footsteps of traders, refugees, rebels, and poets. It remembers what we forget. You cannot bottle wildness and expect wisdom to remain. You cannot trade silence for turbines and hope the spirit survives. Is it too late? Not yet. Some dam projects have been suspended due to public protest and international pressure. Local communities have organized river festivals, educational campaigns, even stood in front of bulldozers. In 2016, a coalition of ethnic groups declared their section of the river a peace park, a bold attempt to protect it with indigenous law rather than waiting on governments. Their message was clear: this river does not belong to investors. It belongs to those who still listen to it. But their voice is small, and the machines are loud. In a world obsessed with controlling nature, maybe it's time we learn to protect what we don't fully understand. The Salween doesn't want to be conquered, it wants to run. So let it, because when the last wild river is tamed, it won't just be a river we lose. It will be something in us. A sense of mystery, a sense of humility, a reminder that not everything was made to serve. If this story moved you, share it, speak about it. Let others know the Salween still runs wild, but not for long. Subscribe to Myths and Mysticism of Rivers for more forgotten stories before they disappear.